So I'll start with Bright on the matter of the Tamale Teaching Hospital. And back to my question, when the impunity will end. It's become a ritual. And when the doctors and nurses, when they release a statement, they give us a chronology of how this has happened over time without any action that stops it. There are other, directors of that facility who have come in and have had to be chased out of the place. There are other government facilities, around town in Tamale, which have suffered similar situations where, a group of people claiming to belong to a particular party believe they can constitute themselves into the police and law enforcement and go and chase out somebody on suspicion that they were engaged in some wrongdoing or some corrupt activity. How is this encouraged, and how can we stop it?
From my understanding, as a layman observing the scene, it appears that operational autonomy for the police is not a very strongly established principle in Ghana. So they do receive executive orders very often before they act. We have to make a choice. Do we want to go the UK route where operational autonomy is very much the thing? Or do you want to continue on this path where the police usually are very subject to the political mood? If that is the case, then we will, and as far as I'm concerned, in the present time, it is very much a Ministry of the Interior problem. It's very much a BNI problem. It's very much a CID problem. They should be aware of these risks as they bubble underneath. And they should have intelligence that suggests that these things are about to happen. And there should be the willingness at the very top of the political system to go beyond what is just favorable from a short-term political point of view and act in their long-term self-interest. Because in the long-term self-interest, if this disorder continues, it does not reflect well on them at all. In the short term, they may be worried about the fact that members of their own party are being prosecuted, members of their own parties are being chased by the security agencies, and therefore that it poses a risk to their remaining in office. But in actual fact, that's just short-term benefits that in the medium to long term is going to redound back very negatively on their parties. I'm not, of course, the reasonable thing to say is that the police should just act.
Right.
We should have people within the police service, we should have people within the intelligence service that are honorable enough that regardless of the underlying political undertones are willing to do what it takes. But we know if the case is that operational autonomy is not the 10, then we are expecting too much. We are expecting heroes. And in my experience, heroes are not that easy to come by. So I will put the blame squarely on the political leadership.
But why do you think that even within the police itself,
yes,
they have had to, join the advocacy by persons, I think, like Short and the rest, that you need to have an IGP who would be appointed with a secure tenure, just like the way we appoint independent constitutional body heads, like the Shraj boss, like an EC boss, like an NCC boss. They are appointed, and like a judge, you can't remove them. They are independent. Why do you think this doesn't seem to resonate with the political class, and nothing appears to have been done about this so far?
If it's about what we ought to do, then it's very simple. We need to advertise high-level government positions and let people apply for them, and the Public Service Commission run interviews and appoint the right IGP. That's what we ought to do. Given the political economy, I'm not sure it's going to happen. So the question that I have is, we can do some, politically limited political act. We can take some limited political actions, such as perhaps start to consider whether we should amend relevant legislation around having the police council in its current state. Because I think that the way that we have these security council, armed forces council, police council, chaired by the vice president, etc., goes to reinforce the lack of operational autonomy of the security agencies.
And at the regional levels, the security councils
are headed by regional ministers and things like that.
Okay.
So it goes to reinforce the lack of operational autonomy. And we have to make a decision politically whether somebody is powerful enough to make it a campaign issue. We have an opposition party that is running for office.
Right.
Why is it that they almost never make campaign issues out of things that can improve the governance of this country.
Right.
I mean, there's always, I'll build these schools and I'll build this, and that's fine. We need infrastructure. But there are issues that are relevant to how we run our country and our society. Where if they made them political manifesto promises, I think we go a long way to improve this country, because then it creates a race to the bottom.
Right.
Because then the governing party also responds.
Nanaya, the Interior Minister has given a caution even to the police heads in the region. He says you must produce results on this case. If you don't, you yourself, your job is on the line. We need to hear a lot more of this, right? And get those down there working.
Absolutely. I mean, it goes back to what we were discussing earlier on in relation to football, where you've got something that is a culture of rot. You can say that you can produce results by tackling it on an individual basis. But I actually think the business of cultural change has to come from the bottom up. And that's, you know, the executive order asking people to do their job and making them sit up will produce instances in this particular case, we hope, and make room for some accountability and some answers in this particular case. But it doesn't necessarily do anything longer term to address a problem where political parties of all persuasions will give lip service to the idea of addressing a systemic problem where it's in their political interest, particularly when they're in opposition.
Right.
But when they're in power, they're actually quite comfortable with the rot and with playing it both ways. That applies evenly across the board, because obviously governments do not want to make life difficult for themselves. They have enough work on their hands managing the day-to-day functions of government and don't necessarily have the energy to think about the longer term structural things. There are certain people within government at the moment who are thinking about the longer term structural considerations. They do not necessarily kind of have first say, because, you know, government is a business of day-to-day addressing the immediate problems, so what I was saying about crisis management. And so you always run the risk of, if you like, having a saying a bright type approach should apply. You hold a commission of inquiry, they come up with wonderful reports. Very often we commission multiple bodies of people to hold inquiries into the identical thing. Complete waste of government time, resources and energy. And at the end of the day, they produce a report, it's bound, it goes into a library somewhere, and nothing changes in effect. I mean, I'm convinced that there are enough people in the current dispensation who are interested in introducing long-term change, but the cultural change has to come in a concert of government action and working along with the people beneath. Okay. If the people beneath feel like there is a culture of impunity that allows them to go out and, if you like, settle personal scores on a local level and not have to answer for it at the end of the day, or even answer for it but be pardoned, as has happened in the not so distant past, in some spectacularly embarrassing examples, right, they will do it.
You're referring to the Munche 3 situation?
Absolutely.
Very, very terrible. Okay, so now, Randy, you see, the NPP party has suspended its communication officer there because he's made comments and they seek to say he didn't do the right thing. Now, 4 people were arrested and they were said to be in the Kandahar group, which is associated with the NPP's, they call them vigilante. I don't recognize them as vigilante because vigilante is a different ballgame altogether. Now, they organized a press conference and called for those people to be released and said their members were not, affected. They didn't do anything. Yes, they were released. People say this is how we encourage it. The police ought to be doing better than they are doing.
See, there's a certain deficit of honesty in how we do things in this town, and especially when we transition from opposition to government or government to opposition. Look, this Tamale incident has just brought to the front burner this discussion again. It is not new.
Right.
And I think that Bright tilted towards that direction. Look, the whole architecture of the security agencies and all that, let's stop kidding ourselves. In the police service, from the bottom to the top, they know who are NDC and who are MPP. They know. The institutions themselves are politicized. There is change in government, and you have military officers who have not yet been assigned by the military hierarchy, who go to the center of government and go and take position and start working. All the security institutions in this country have been politicized, especially the hierarchy. And it is probably based on the architecture that we've created and all that. I keep saying that, look, maybe we intended well. Having practiced this thing for a certain period of time, is it not about time we sat back and asked ourselves whether this thing has helped us? You see, you live in a country where when parties are in opposition, they always are suspicious of security agencies. They don't trust them. They use that as a basis to encourage some of these groupings. When they are in power, they all of a sudden have utmost trust for those same institutions. What is it that has changed? For which reason the trust or mistrust is there? It is because, you know, we have politicized these institutions. We know who our boys are. We know who our guys are. We know who to place there. Look, some of these groups that we call vigilante or whatever even demand a say in who is appointed to head some of these security agencies. What led to the issue in Kumasi, for example, when they went there to sack a regional security boss? It is because they had a preferred choice. And the person there was not their choice. So they thought that that person must go. And that's what led to that situation. And if you have a situation where the Attorney General is prosecuting people who've gone to assault the regional head of security, and then the reason why the Attorney General cannot proceed with respect to the charges that he wanted to prefer is that the head of security in the region, who is an officer of the state, has told the Attorney General that I cannot cooperate with you, as in be a witness in this matter, for you to prosecute the same people who came to vandalize my office and assault me.
Same suggestion is standing out in this matter where the one who was in the center of the matter was invited by the police. He went, he said these guys were not involved, and so the police had to release them.
You get the point I'm making. So, you see, it is the deficit in honesty.
And he's also scared for his life, right?
Yes, it is the deficit in honesty. That, look, I just couldn't believe it, that the head of security in a region is the one who is the victim. Okay. And he says, I can't cooperate with the Attorney General.
All right.
And he stays in office.
We are running out of time. Beshamima, briefly. When that is happening, we have another situation where, what impunity? That a minister is going to inaugurate a facility done by government. Yeah. And NDC guys go there and they say, this was done by NDC. So you can't inaugurate the hospital, the polyclinic.
You asked the question, when will it end? I think that it will end when the vigilante groups visit the Flagstaff house and lock it up. It will end when such thing
They wouldn't dare
happens.
Get close to
Why
the
wouldn't
Flagstaff house.
They assaulted somebody.
Well, don't be too sure about that. Because whatever it is that is driving these people, that is making them so brazen, will drive them someday to the seat of government. They would go to ministers' houses and lock them up. They will go to MPs' houses and lock them up. And I actually want such a thing to happen. Because then people will sit up and realize the bomb that we are setting on, that we are tinkering with. And at the root of all of this is unemployment and the orientation that we have given to these people, the expectation they have when their party is in opposition in preparation to come to government. That kind of orientation, that entitlement mentality is what is breeding what we are seeing today. And unless something really happens, something will give, and will give very soon.
Thank you very much. We have run out of time. Bright, 20 seconds.
I was just going to say that, but it appears as if your keen sense of political cynicism is failing you this time, because you are making the assumption that some of these people are not organized and mobilized and funded by sections of the political elite.
Okay.
For all you know, they are just people that are
then you also haven't followed them,
Okay.
because they have also been equally angry
Right.
at their politicians,
Right.
at their
Right.
MPs,
Right.
at their ministers
Right.
that
And
made
we know
promises to
some of them are
which
funded,
promises
as
they are not meeting.
one
So they will
MP
go
said
back
some
for
time
them
ago
someday.
about the Delta forces. My guests have been Shamima Muslim Al-Hassan, convener, Alliance for Women in Media Africa and Youth Development Advocate. Bright Simmons is Honorary Vice President, Imani Africa. Nanaya Mensah is Managing Editor, The Daily Statesman. And Randy Abe is host, Good Morning Ghana Metro Television. Thank you very much. I'm Samson Ladi Anyanini. My outfit, as always, is by Latida. Have a good afternoon.